members of the audience. The man in the check shirt there, and then I'll come over here. Yes.
I did some maths on the back of an envelope as well. I should say I'm an economist and a financial advisor, and I took the 10 billion of net savings that we would make if we left Europe, and I multiplied those by 14, which is the number of years, obviously, up to 2030. I then used the economic credit multiplier because, of course, you have the benefit of spending that 10 billion, the taxes raised on it, some economic growth and so on. And do you know the figure I came up with? The figure I came up with was 1.5 trillion, which means that if we leave the European Union, we'll be able to fund and repay the national debt by the time 2030 comes.
I think you should be in the Treasury. You should be in the Treasury. He should be in the Treasury.
Shall I explain why she thinks... Kate Hoey thinks you should be in the Treasury.
I did try, I should say.
Shall I try?
Paddy, yes, just briefly, if you would.
First of all, Kate, you were asked to
Julian.
name one of the international accredited institutions.
No, I wasn't
there
tonight.
are many, and you have named none of them so far. So we'll be interested to see that challenge lies
they all
on the
got
table.
it wrong on the Euro, Paddy.
Well,
you know that. They all
hang on a second.
As did you,
Paddy. Hang on a second. OK, fine, I accept. They could all be wrong. These guys could be right. Are you going to bet the whole country on that possibility?
Yes.
Well, fine. That is fine. If you are going to bet the whole country on a pious hope rather than serious studies from the international institutions that are respected around the world, then you're right to vote Brexit.
All right.
Now, can I answer the question?
Hang on a second. No, the man over there, Inspector.
Well, I was going to try and answer it, if I
can
could.
come back. No, but
Does Liam Fox not feel embarrassed at working for a government that he can't support? I mean, they're so inept. He's just said so.
That the government is so inept?
Yes.
No, I said the report was inept. I didn't say the government was inept. I think that
The Chancellor was inept,
we've got
you
different
said.
views, and we're not all going to be identikit politicians. Goodness, the public don't want that. But what I would say to Paddy is, you know,
No. You said
well, I told
the
you,
Chancellor
I gave
was
you
inept.
the answer. I didn't say the government was inept. I thought the report
said the
was
Chancellor was inept,
I said the report was inept.
You didn't say Osborne was inept?
No, I didn't say. I said the report was inept.
Got it wrong,
I said it was cringing, which is
But
in fact what it was.
It doesn't embarrass you.
And to go back to Paddy's point on the IMF.
Never mind,
No,
Paddy.
all of them, Liam. Every single one. Not just the IMF,
the IMF, which
the
is
OECD,
fine.
the London School of
But
Economics, the Governor of the Bank of England, all of them, and many more I could name.
And they all said you
Yes.
should join the euro.
Absolutely.
The Bank of England said it would be good for the UK economy to join the euro. Thank God we didn't listen to that.
All right, Paddy, I want to go round the table. I'll come back to you, but I'm going to go to the woman up there in the second row from the back there.
How do you think the government would be able to guarantee income for farmers if we left the European Union? They get so much of their income, 55% of their income in 2015 came from being linked with the European Union and direct payments. How would the government be able to guarantee that?
Leanne Wood, you answer that, because you've got farmers in Wales who benefit from this.
Yes, and I'm really glad you raised that question, because in Wales we have many farmers scratching a living on hillsides, trying very hard to make those businesses a success, and I'm very concerned about what will happen to those, because I have no faith in Westminster, whoever is in government, to redistribute that wealth in a fair way, because they don't have a good record on that. But
so you trust the European...
Well, they are redistributing wealth now.
You trust them better than Westminster?
Well, they are doing it now.
Yes.
There is an element of redistribution.
And you think that a Westminster government would pull back on that?
Well,
if Brexit came
my
about?
party has been campaigning for years for parity for Wales with Scotland, for example, and we've had no success in terms of sorting out our financial situation. But can I just respond to this point about information and figures and the way in which this information is put up? People are desperate for accurate information, for facts. This is a difficult decision, and people want to make an informed decision based on the correct information. And the way that figures are being bandied about, economic forecasts way into the future, are impossible to predict. And today, it's not just the one side, it's the Brexit supporters as well. We had the head of the Office for National Statistics has questioned this figure that's being used of £350 million is costing us every week to remain as a member of the EU. So the figures are questioned on both sides, and I think what people want now, in order to make that informed choice on this very important question, is to have facts.
The problem with facts, Leanne, is that facts can be interpreted differently. If I hold up this glass of water in my right hand, it's half full. If I move it to my left hand, it's half empty. You know, there is a fact, but just on the farming aspect, 40% of the money we give into the EU goes to subsidising farmers all over the EU. We're subsidising French farmers far, far more than our farmers are getting. Before we joined the common market, farmers got subsidy.
Okay.
Why would they not?
I'm going to bring in Tim Martin, and I'll come back to you, Paddy. Tim.
The Farming and Agricultural Minister, George Eustace, has said that the farming community will continue to be supported to the same level it is within the EU. There is no real EU money. We send money out to the EU, and it comes back to support farmers with strings attached. It's not a very efficient way.
Why did the NFU this week vote to remain then, if that's so?
Well,
I mean, they represent the farmers.
Maybe they don't believe George Eustace, but I do.
Okay. Paddy Ashdown. And then I come to more members of our panel. Yes, you want to come in? All right, Liam.
I mean, the problem with farming is not just will they get that money withdrawn. By the way, in terms of facts, Leanne is right. The 350 million they've been talking about a week, actually that was checked, and in a report announced today by Sir Andrew Dilnot in the UK Statistical Agency, whose job it is to provide statistics are accurate, says that 350 million is totally inaccurate and misleading. The actual figure that we give to Europe after taking account of the rebates that come back is about 7.8 billion. That's about 30p per person per day in Britain. Now, I could just like to address our economist friend over here. Let's take that as 7 or 8 billion that we then pay into the European Union. If we leave the European Union, the likelihood, you can already see the pound dropping. You're already beginning to see Britain's credit rating being held in question by Standard & Poor. If it is the case, as I think is likely, that an exit from the European Union leads to 1% increase in interest rates on our mountain of debt, that 7 billion is swallowed up the day after, many, many times over. And that's leaving aside the extra cost of 23 billion. That leaves aside the extra cost of 23 billion in tariffs that is going to be loaded on the cost of British goods, and 25% extra on agricultural goods, by the way, which will be paid for not by your money, but in lost jobs and broken businesses. This doesn't sound to me like a good deal.
You did say we shouldn't take too much account of these figures that are being bandied about.
Well, excuse me, if it is the National Statistical Agency designed to be able to ensure that figures are correct, who criticise the 350 million, I think the audience should know that.
In terms of farming, to get back to the question, I think the factor that will determine whether we get a fair deal or not is what's in our mutual interest. And we actually import, the figure this year is £19.4 billion worth of agricultural goods from Europe, more than we sell to them. It's actually in their interests, even more than ours, to get a free trade agreement, including on agricultural goods. Right. And the NFU report actually said that if we assume that we have a free trade deal and we continue the subsidies at the level we have now, and I don't know any party that's proposing anything else, then actually all agricultural sectors will benefit. And I don't think it does any good to scare people that the benefits that they get at the moment will be less if we're a free country than we get from the munificence of the European Union.
Let me hear from a number of members of the audience. You, sir, in the blue suit there. You, sir.
Paddy, one of the things you asked Kate about earlier was about evidence, and you're just bandying figures around almost willy-nilly, and you're also referring to institutions that didn't predict the last recession and certainly didn't predict how good and how quick the recovery would be.
All right.
So I think that's,
Paddy,
it's not good enough.
You with the spectacles there in front of him. Yes. You had your hand up, I think, yeah.
In the short term, we see that maybe there'll be a struggle before we can actually negotiate all of these free trade deals. Maybe in the long run, you can make the case that it's better to exit, but in the short term, there'll be significant pain.
OK, I want to hear from more members of the audience. Let's just get a feel. You, sir, up there. Yes.
I wonder if at the end of the day the figures are going to be what people make their decision around. It's very difficult to feel that you can believe any particular set of figures so much that you can rely on them. I believe people will vote on how they feel about the EU and nothing else.
OK. And you, sir? Yes.
The point I'd like to make is that it is all a mess. But I have more confidence that we can sort out our own mess than that mess can be sorted out in Brussels.
Yeah. Okay. The reality is this whole debate is really, and I know Paddy doesn't like me using this word, but it is the establishment who are lining up and uniting against ordinary people who want to have a say for the first time in 40 years.
Why does that
who is
include
running their country?
If it is the establishment, how come that you're one of only 7 Labour MPs?
No, 12.
Oh, 12 now?
12, yeah.
Great. Only 12 Labour MPs going for Brexit. Is the Labour Party the establishment? Is Jeremy Corbyn the establishment?
Well, of course, Jeremy's position on the EU is very interesting because, of course, Jeremy was in every single lobby with myself and others right through the last 20 years. But Jeremy is now leader of the party. He wants to keep the party together. He doesn't want to be seeing the divisions that perhaps there are in the Conservatives.
And he doesn't want to be on the same side as UKIP,
he actually has a very different view, which I support, of what, if we had to stay in the EU, of how I would like to see it changing. I just don't believe it will ever reform, and therefore there is no point in staying in.
OK, I'll take a couple more points, and then we'll go on to another question, so we're halfway through the programme. You, madam, up there.
Why does everything have to be about the bottom line?
Yeah.
Why do we not have some vision here, some leadership? Why are we retreating into petty nationalism? Why do we not want to work with our European friends and neighbours to reform a deeply flawed institution, but to make it better?
I think it's very important to understand that the Europeans are our friends, and what's important for them is important for us. And it's been shown to be the greatest protection against autocrats and war is that they regain control of their own democracy. And that's what will protect us in the future. So it isn't being a little Britain to want to have democracy. It's slowly being eroded, and that's very dangerous.
Is it really a friendly gesture?
OK, let you come back. Yes, go on. No, let her come back, and then, Paddy, you come in.
Is it really a friendly gesture to throw your toys out of the pram and say you're not going to play anymore because not all the rules suit you?
No one's doing that.
No, we're not doing that. She is, of course, entirely right. The great British tradition is not to shelter behind our island walls and shout insults at foreigners, is to get engaged. But you are entirely right in also saying this is not just about economics. You know, forgive me, I've done quite a lot about peace in my time, including fighting for it. Liam said it was due to NATO that we were at peace. Well, every single one of our NATO allies, there is no exception, is saying, please do not leave Europe. NATO will be weaker in consequence. Every single one of our European allies is saying the same thing. Every single one of our Commonwealth allies is doing the same thing. Only one man in our neighbourhood wants us to leave and begin to break up the European Union, and you know his name. It's Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, whose strategy for the last 30 years has been to divide Europe, to use energy, to use tanks to capture European territory. If you move now to break up the European Union, then I can tell you the one person who will cheer is not a single one of our allies or a single one of our friends, but the Russian leader. Vote Brexit. All right. It's what Putin wants you to do.
No, it's not.
That is true.
All right. Liam Fox is a former Defence Secretary. What do you make of what Paddy's just said?
Oh, I think it's nonsensical. You know,
Paddy, allow him to answer the question. Allow him, please.
You know, we were in the EU when he annexed Crimea. We were in the EU when he invaded Georgia. It didn't really seem to stop him or dissuade him from those actions. And I think that's a ridiculous argument. I want to take up the point that this gentleman made.
Which gentleman?
The gentleman right at the back here, with the grey hair, if you don't mind me saying that. I do agree. I think this is much more than just about money. Yeah. And for me, and for many people, this is about being a self-governing democracy, able to make our own laws, control our borders, and control our own money, and to escape from the financial quicksand of the euro. Because the more that the euro drags down the European economy, and I'm not sure that people necessarily understand this, and the more our economy is successful, the bigger our contribution to the European Union gets. We end up funding a project that we stayed out of because we correctly predicted it would fail.